There's a relatively simple recipe that we could apply to make sure that we have the maximum likelihood of success in doing our project. Now, it's not about a particular tool, and there's no secret recipe that comes in the form of a book or a video or a document that we've laminated. It really comes down to a logical progression that you as a practitioner can follow that really gives you the step-by-step philosophy and steps that you're going to execute to help you move forward on the problem that we're describing. The ability to understand that there are a lot of different elements that you need to help you have success in your project. There's a couple of ingredients that we can tick right off the top. It's essential to have support, and support comes in a lot of different forms. We need to have a sponsor, a champion, somebody who's going to have the authority to make the changes that your project or event may recommend. If we don't have somebody who's buying into the fact that this is a problem and they're willing to make changes, any kind of a study, any kind of analysis, any kind of work that we do is really academic in nature. We need to be able to have somebody who both agrees the issue we're focusing on is legitimate and agrees that that's something they would like to take action on. And our event, our project, is going to be a means to an end. We are going to be the method of taking action. Having that support from a champion, from a sponsor who's going to help us be successful is a great way to set the initial foundation. We also need to have someone who's going to own the process, someone who's going to do the care and feeding for any of the changes or improvements that we may make. It's very difficult to do a lot of change, to improve the waste, to reduce the variability, to eliminate the defect, and to not really have responsibility. I like to think of this as kind of the rental car scenario, that rental cars don't tend to be the most well taken care of automobiles on the road because the owner is kind of an entity that nobody has ever met. It's a corporation that has standards, but there's no specific ownership. It kind of comes down to the person that you're working with and whether or not they feel that you've abused or misused that car when you come to check it in. Not the same as somebody who's going to truly own their car. And when they go to trade it in, they're going to have to own up for every scratch and ding and issue that may have been created, and they don't want to spend or cost themselves that money. This ownership of the process is essential to the sustain activities that we're going to spend a lot of time talking about. That if no one owns it, the likelihood of it being sustained diminishes dramatically. So we have somebody who can make a decision about the process changing. We got someone who's going to own what it is that we're doing. We've also got to have clarity around the scope of what it is we're going to try to accomplish. So what is the improvement? How would I characterize or measure it? If I don't have some way to characterize or measure the change that I want to make, there's not really going to be an effective way to be able to tell that a change has occurred. I like to use the saying that you can only improve what you can measure, because if you can't measure it, you can't tell whether or not you've improved it. And I also like to say that you can only sustain what it is that you're able to explain. So if we can't characterize what that change is that we've made, then our ability to sustain it is not likely to occur. Now, connecting all of these dots together, having someone who can make a change, having someone who's going to own it, having some clarity around what we're going to improve or change are these foundational ingredients that when we couple that with a roadmap, when we start to bring in the tools that we're going to be learning in the course of our program, when we start to talk about the facilitative techniques and the problem-solving tools that we use, these start to become the stepping stones that allow stakeholders to allow cross-functional resources that work with or around or in the process you're improving to start to interact, to make decisions about what it is they agree and support and buy into so that we can start to make change happen. It's really valuable to have sort of a pattern, a structure, an organization that you're going to go forward with to make these things occur. But irregardless of any roadmap we may have, in the absence of a couple of key ingredients, very little tends to either happen or be sustained. And we want to make sure that you start off on the best possible foot.